Living beings who are entangled in the complicated meshes of birth and death can be freed immediately by even unconsciously chanting the holy name of Krishna, which is feared by fear personified. Purport. Vasudeva, or Lord Krishna, the absolute personality of Godhead, is the supreme controller of everything. There is no one in creation who is not afraid of the rage of the Almighty. Great asuras like Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, Kamsa, and others, who were very powerful living entities, were all killed by the personality of Godhead. And the Almighty Vasudeva has empowered his name with the powers of his personal self. Everything is related to him, and everything has its identity in him. It is stated herein that the name of Krishna is feared even by fear personified. This indicates that the name of Krishna is non-different from Krishna. Therefore, the name Krishna is as powerful as Lord Krishna himself. There is no difference at all. Anyone, therefore, can take advantage of the holy names of Lord Krishna, even in the midst of the greatest dangers. The transcendental name of Krishna, even though uttered unconsciously or by force of circumstances, can help one obtain the freedom from the hurdle of birth and death. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we were asked to talk about the holy name and the holy books. Let's talk about the holy name. So, in this purport, Prabhupada is talking about the power of the holy name, and there's something that can be misleading, because Prabhupada says here, what does he say? Yeah. The Almighty Vasudeva has empowered his name with the powers of his personal self. So that could sound like the name Krishna is not Krishna, but Krishna comes and puts power in that name. So it's actually not exactly Krishna, but it's Krishna's power, like his Shakti. You know, like, here's the keys to my car, you have my Shakti now. But that's different than me. And the second verse of Shishastakam says the same thing. You've empowered your name with all your energies. So it could sound like it's not actually Krishna, it's kind of like him, but it's different. It's like, it's a receptacle for the Shaktis of Krishna. It could sound like that. And because we have a tendency to depersonalize everything, or many things, and not realize the full power of the holy name, it's easy to just think, yeah, well, you know, Krishna's powers are in his name, but it's not actually the same as him. So this morning or yesterday morning, Prabhupada was giving a lecture, and he was emphasizing the point that this is Krishna. No less, no more, just Krishna. The holy name is Krishna, not a potency put in a cup. That's Krishna's potency, it is Krishna manifest fully in sound, non-different, the same personality. We're associating with Krishna personally. It's not going to be different associating with him in some other form. This is him. And actually, in one sense, it's better than him. It's as Jiva Goswami says, it's better because you can have immediate access even if you're unqualified. So in that sense, it's better. If you offend Krishna, that's a problem. You offend the holy name, just keep chanting. So it's more merciful. Now in this verse, it says something which may appear contradictory to other things you've heard about chanting. It said that if someone chants unconsciously, and that you might say, yeah, that's pretty much how I chant half the time. I'm not even conscious that I'm chanting. My lips are moving. but my mind is not always present. So I guess it's okay, because it says it right here. I'll read it to you. The transcendental name of Krishna, even though uttered unconsciously or by force of circumstances, that means like, haram, haram, how horrible. In Arabic, I think, or, yeah, how horrible. Force of circumstance. Chanted unconsciously or by force of circumstance can help one attain freedom from the hurdle of birth and death. So, that's what the verse says, therefore that's what Prabhupada's saying in the purport, and we have to clarify what he means. Chanting one name of Krishna can eliminate all the sins one has committed, ever. So that's good, and that can put you on the path of overcoming birth and death. But as you may have noticed, Prabhupada didn't say this will give you love of Krishna. This kind of chanting can free you from past sins, but it won't give you love of Krishna. So just to clarify that sometimes we hear, oh, just chant once and all your sins are gone. And the understanding is that the removal of sin, the holy name is like light, it's powerful, so it'll remove sin, and that's not a big problem. Anything transcendental can remove sin. Charanamrita, seeing the deity. If you read Nectar Devotion, there's so many activities that say this can free you from all sinful reactions. It doesn't mean you won't commit sin ever again. It doesn't mean it roots out the desire for committing sin. That has to be pure bhakti will do that. But just, you see Lord Jagannath, it's good. Your spiritual life begins. Many kids go to the manor when they're 8 years old, and when they're 25, they become devotees. So these things all have effect. There's no question. But to actually develop love of God, then one has to chant without offense. So I just didn't want anyone to misunderstand these 2 points. It's not Krishna put some Shakti in the name. It's like the name's just holding the Shakti. No, it is Krishna. And Krishna has all Shakti, so yeah. So when we say, that trend, Nam Namakari Bahudan, in your name are all Shaktis, it could sound like, it's just like, okay, we're going to take all the Shaktis and put them in this name, and the name will carry. And chant the name, you get all the Shakti. It could sound like that, but basically Mahaprabhu is saying, you yourself are present in your name, therefore all Shaktis are present. And our goal is to chant purely. So if you misunderstand what's said in this verse, you just think, well, any chanting is going to put you on the path. Yeah, that's true. But on the path and reaching the goal are 2 different things. So to reach the goal, Shuddhanam, pure chanting, chanting without offense, that is required, that is our goal, and that's what brings love of Krishna. So, it is therefore said that you can evaluate or understand the advancement of a devotee by their attraction, their taste, their realization that they experience when they're chanting. So, our taste for chanting is an indicator of our status, spiritual status. So if chanting is good, there's some taste, some attraction, that's a good sign. We're advancing. If it's not a good sign. Or it's a sign we're not applying ourselves. Because the goal is Shuddhanam. And if you can chant Shuddhanam, then that's perfection. And all the other angas of bhakti, they're all meant to support us so we can chant that Shuddhanam. That's what it's all about. And all the Shastras, they glorify the chanting of the holy name. Therefore, one of the offenses is to blaspheme the Vedic literature. And so you might have thought, how is blaspheming the Vedic literature? And why would one want to blaspheme in the first place? But how is blaspheming the Vedic literature an offense to the holy name? A lot of Vedic literature just says worship some demigod to get some material benefit. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that ultimately the ultimate essence of all the Vedic literature is to chant the holy name, to glorify the holy name. So then if I criticize or offend the Vedic literature, I'm offending the holy name, because that's ultimately where they're leading us and what they're glorifying. Did you know that? That's interesting, isn't it? So, Prabhupada had to emphasize in this lecture, like, just in case you don't have it clear, Krishna is in his name, non-different, it's the same. Krishna is not another Krishna. That Krishna, you know that Krishna, you know the Krishna you know about? Yeah, that one, that's the name also. And so why is Prabhupada emphasizing that after he's told us that many, many, many times? Obviously because he thinks we don't get it. And we obviously don't get it by experience, because if we did, we'd be crying and rolling on the ground and so on and so forth. We definitely wouldn't be bored, that's for sure. We'd be having quite a time chanting japa, and it would pretty much replace any other desire for anything in this world. It would just... So that's why Prabhupada's emphasizing it, because we don't have that experience. And that experience only comes on the stage of bhava. So yeah, we have to keep chanting to get to the stage of bhava. But at the stage of bhava, that's the stage when you realize this, that Krishna's there fully. So, my dear devotees, you have to struggle every morning. No matter whether you want to chant or not, whether you're focused or not, you struggle to try to get to this pure stage. And then when you get there, the reward will be taste and attachment, and then you'll realize Krishna's in his name. And from there, it should be pretty easy to finish off your business in the material world. So, yes. So, yesterday in class, we were bringing up this point where what we experience, what we put into our bhakti is what we experience. And so, what did you put into your japa this morning? Whatever you put into it is probably what you were experiencing, right? What did you put into it? You know, so if I put this into my japa, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. I'm putting in a prayer, I'm putting in some begging, Krishna help me. So that's obviously what I'm experiencing. And if I'm putting into Krishna, you know, then that's what I'm experiencing, or anything in between, right? So we could ask the question, well, what are you putting into the holy name? Because pretty much that's what you're going to get out of it. And you might say, but you just said it's Krishna. So I should get so much out of it. Ye yatamam prapadyante. That's okay, it's Krishna. But Krishna's covered by the curtain of Maya. So even though it's Krishna, if you don't have the right attitude and put the proper devotion in it, then even though it's Krishna, it's not Krishna for you. It's just blah for you. Because you put in blah, you get back blah. Even though it's Krishna's name. Garbage in, garbage out. You have that saying here? Garbage in, garbage japa in, and what do you get out of it? You think, no, but it's Krishna, it's absolute, he's there. Yeah, but what's your experience of that Krishna? Pretty much your experience is what you're putting into it. Isn't it? Now, of course, Krishna can reciprocate, but generally he reciprocates because you're putting in an effort. So he'll reciprocate 100 times. But if you put in blah, what's there to reciprocate with? 100 times blah is still blah. Right? Actually, I heard a lecture this morning. Prabhupada he said 100 times. Sometimes we hear 10 times, he said 100 times. You go to Krishna 100 times. So, 100. You don't want 100 times blah, do you? Like it said, you go to Vrindavan, it's 1,000 times more powerful. Yeah, and also the offenses are 1,000 times more powerful. So if Krishna's going to reciprocate 100 times, and he reciprocates with blah 100 times, it's not very good. But you make a little effort, then he reciprocates, that's good. And then Prabhupada said something funny. He said, if you think of Krishna 24 hours a day, he'll think of you 26 hours a day. So, the best advice I can give anyone who wants to connect with the holy name is don't treat it as a thing, as a process, as a program, as a routine, as a duty, but treat it as Krishna. Because if you treat it any of those other ways, you're going to experience the holy name as a thing, a process, a routine, a ritual. Does that make sense? Because that's how if you approach it that way, that's how it'll be, right? So, if we're going to improve our chanting, we have to approach the holy name as Krishna and not approach it as a ritual or mechanical process or something that must be done. Although those things, in a sense, you could say are true, it is a process and it must be done. But to just see it as a process and it must be done, that's a very impersonal way of approaching the holy name. But to see it as Krishna and a connection with Krishna is a personal way, and the experience will be different, and the benefits will be enormously different. So that's where it starts. Then everything will get better from there. Once you get beyond the mechanical, ritualistic process, have to do it, blah, I don't want to, it's why so many rounds and all that. Once you get past that, then you've cleared out all the potential obstacles, and you can then start to have some sense that Krishna is there, Krishna is here right now, and I'm talking to him, I'm praying to him, I'm not just trying to get my rounds done. Because that's the lowest level of japa, it's just trying to get them done. You know what we're talking about sometimes. You don't want to chant, and you're just trying to get them done. You don't want to be there. And if you're in that mood, you want to do something to shake yourself out of it. Just remind yourself, this is Krishna. Krishna's here. I'm connecting with him as supposed to be, praying to him, asking for pure bhakti. And right now, I'm just feeling like I don't want to do this. Krishna, you're cool, but it's kind of boring. I'm feeling bored, like hanging out with your holy name right now. So we don't want to go there. And if we go there, we have to somehow have some mechanism, like we were saying yesterday, have a mechanism to like change that. Because that is, it's just a loss of time. We don't want to spend 2 hours doing that. I don't want to say there's no benefit, but the benefit is so minimal, it's almost like a waste. That's a kind of maybe a controversial thing to say. But I believe it, because I've experienced it, and every one of you have experienced it also. That if we chant making offenses, which the main offense is distraction, inattention, but worse, when we're chanting, we don't want to be chanting. Like bhakti is all about love and devotion. So now if I'm doing bhakti and I don't want to be, and begrudgingly, that's not good. It's antithetical to the mood of bhakti. Now we've all chanted that way, right? Yes? Yeah, it's so antithetical to the nature of bhakti. And what I've tried to help devotees realize is that when they're chanting, it is not a time for a passive connection with Krishna and the holy name. It's a time for a very active, prayerful session. That's what we're doing. We're begging, we're praying, and the holy name is not, the holy name is a prayer. It's not just a verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Oh, my Lord, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, my obeisances to you. That's a kind of prayer, but it's not a petition. It's a glorification. So you can have prayers of glorification, but technically speaking, a prayer is a petition. It's asking for something. Om Purnam Madaha Purnam Idam. It's not asking for anything. It's making a statement that, oh my Lord, you're full and you're complete, and everything that comes from you is complete. It's a glorification. It's a different mood than, oh Radha, oh Krishna, please let me love you. Teach me how to love you. Help me overcome this selfishness, this desire, these desires to just think about myself and my sense gratification. Help me think about your sense gratification. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It's completely different. So we should not chant the holy name in any other mood. Well, I can't say any other mood. We should chant in the mood of petition, because that's what it is. Hare means O Radha. That's a petition, right? O Radha. O Radha and Krishna. Isn't that interesting? It's got a whole translation and it's just names. Like, you could say, what does the holy name mean? It doesn't mean anything, it's just names. I can tell you what the names mean. No, but we don't say that. We say, no, the holy name means Krishna, I have fallen into this ocean. I can't get out of it. And all I think about is me. And I want to think about you. And I want to desire for you, but I just desire for me. And that's the mood of the devotee. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Just praying like that. That's it. So that's very different than a process, isn't it? Process is like, sit straight, look at something, listen, be aware, and chant. Okay, that's all good. But where's your heart in that? What's your realization of the holy name, and what is your intention? What is your goal? That's where we need to be at when we're chanting. So that's I mean, I could speak, of course I could speak for 15 hours. But if you get this, everything I could say, you'll get it by doing this. And if you don't do this, nothing I could say is going to help you. Because mechanical, just get it done with chanting is kind of what happens when we don't really try to connect, and we don't go into a deep mood of begging and prayerfulness, and we don't consciously make an effort to focus on Krishna in that sound incarnation as being present there, and listening, and being with me, and conscious that Shuddhanam, this pure chanting, is my goal. Because if we do all that, that's all you need to do. Everything else I could tell you is superfluous. It's just external. Because that's the essence. And even though we know that, we often don't do that. Now, I was asked to speak a little something. Well, let me just put the icing on the cake of this. There's always this tendency as a conditioned soul to oscillate between connecting deeply with Krishna and not, because it's not our permanent state. So therefore, sometimes during japa, you might go through phases of very intense, prayerful, and then very lazy and tired, distracted, and, for lack of a better word, spaced out japa. Like, spaced out japa is totally disconnected. Like, you are not present at all to what's going on. And then we wake up and go, oh, I'm spaced out. So, and then we try to get back into it, right? Like, 3 rounds later, you realize, oh, I disconnected 3 rounds ago. Better you realize that after one mantra, but sometimes we don't. But our goal should be that that doesn't happen. Or if it happens, we reconnect like in 2 mantras or 3, not 3 rounds or 8 rounds, or don't even reconnect during japa. So that should be our goal, that when we chant, it's very focused on, Krishna, please help me overcome my causeless unwillingness to surrender. Please help me overcome this insatiable lust, this deep, deep rooted desire to enjoy separate from you, to compete with you, and this resistance to surrender, this fear of surrender, this resistance to satisfy your senses, thinking, I'll be the loser, and all of that, that's what we're praying for, to overcome that. That's what's supposed to be in our heart. Hare Krishna. Then it comes out. It's very clearly communicated to Krishna, this is what I want. And that's what you'll get, because garbage in, garbage out, nectar in, nectar out, bhakti in, bhakti out. That's what you'll get. But you'll get more of it back, because Krishna will give it 10 times, 100 times. That's the meaning of yeyatam mam prapadyante. It's like, you're my investor. So investor needs money to invest, right? And the more I give you, the more you can invest. Krishna is going to invest in us, but we have to give him some currency to invest in. And our bhakti is the currency we give him. So the more you give that currency during japa, the more he can give you back. But if all you give to Krishna during japa is, I don't like this, it's going to be a slower process. Not that you won't become purified, I don't want to say that. Not that chanting is, there's a bad way or wrong way, although technically you could say that, but every chanting has some benefit. It's just going to take long. Oh, in this book by Bhaktivinoda Jaiva Dharma, these 2 devotees, or maybe they weren't devotees, or maybe they were, but anyway, they met their guru. The guru gave them the holy name, told them to go home and chant 64 rounds. 1 week they came back, and they had achieved the stage of bhava in a week. Those are some good rounds. What do you think? 1 week to bhava. So it must have been some good japa. They did 64 rounds a day. But the point I'm making is, it can happen that in 1 week someone could achieve bhava. So Bhanu Swami told me, or maybe it was a lecture, he said, it's actually supposed to happen that fast. It's like, wow. Then he said something interesting. He said, that's, at least traditionally, there wouldn't be this slow, ado shraddha tata sadhusanga, bhajana kriya, anartha nivritti, nishta. And then you get stuck on nishta for like 20 lifetimes. And ruchi is getting harder, asakti. He said no, he said, because things are so bad in Kali Yuga that Rupa Goswami had to divide all these stages, we said normally it's just Shraddha to Bhava very quickly because they're chanting properly. And of course they started, more Brahminical, more pure. So they had a big advantage when they started. But his point was that if someone is pure, it'll happen very quickly. And so if it's not happening quickly, then it's probably because we're not giving Krishna enough bhakti to work with. We're giving him boring rounds to work with. So he's like, Krishna's saying, give me more to work with. This is not enough. I can't give you much. You can stay on anartha nivritti for 3 decades if this is all you're giving me. I need more. Does that make sense? So, if we meditate on what pure bhakti is, and we meditate on our position and what we're lacking, then we can chant more purely. The more we isolate exactly what it is that I need, what it is that I'm lacking, the more we can laser point our prayers when we chant the holy name. And the more you give Krishna to work with. And you'll see the result. Hare Krishna. So, a thought on book distribution, which is also a fundamental thought, is that whether it's book distribution or any form of preaching, outreach in which we're trying to help people come closer to Krishna, the basic impetus is going to be a devotee's desire to please his guru, to please Prabhupada, who so much desires to help conditioned souls come to Krishna consciousness. And so that desire to please Guru is a manifestation of a devotee's compassion. And that's really the essence. And that's what Prabhupada wanted from all his disciples. That this world needs a group of Brahmins who are compassionate, who care about the sufferings, who care about alleviating the sufferings of others. And that's the inspiration and that's the motive for whatever we do. And we look at Prabhupada's life and we see that he was going. He would often become ill, quickly get better, go in ways that an ill person or a person of his age shouldn't have been able to do, and like that. And we can understand it was driven by compassion. He's giving up his sleep to do books, to translate his books. You ever wake up in the morning early and you're thinking, it's too early. If I get up now, I'll be tired. Never happens? Yeah, it's not easy. He didn't get enough sleep. It's like, I didn't get enough sleep, I'm tired. Even though I'm awake now, I need to go back to sleep. Prabhupada's made that sacrifice so he could translate the books. Because it wasn't his normal schedule. Did you know that? You might think, that was just, he's always lived that way. No, he made that schedule because he couldn't find time to translate. And he realized that's the only way I'm going to do it. I just have to get up in the middle of the night. So he decided to make that sacrifice, that I'll sleep 2-3 hours and then I'll translate. What motivated that? Obviously, compassion. So that's the real motivator, to do anything to help others. sometime, as you know, especially if you distribute books, it's both very ecstatic and blissful, but at the same time a bit of a thankless task because most people don't appreciate it. Some people do, but most people don't even take the time to stop. And some people stop and don't like it and say something not so nice, at least in America. I don't know about here. But, so sometimes it can feel like a thankless task. But a devotee's not deterred because he wants to help people. And he knows there's somebody, even though some people are pretty rough or not interested, there are interested people. And I'm just going to stick it out. We're going to find them and we're going to help them. And so that's really the force behind the success of any effort, any outreach effort. And without that, you can do it, but it's not going to be as effective. And it'll tend to be a little more impersonal. Like, why are you distributing these books? Do you care about people? No. Why are you doing it? Well, my guru wants me to. Okay, he cares. So indirectly, you care, even though you don't, because he does. But for you personally, for your spiritual advancement and for your effectiveness, if you care, it's better, because that's what a Vaishnava is. That's what he does. That's how he feels. He does care about people, about ignorance. And you may remember this prayer of Prahlad Maharaj, where he's using the word soche. Soche means lamenting, and he's saying, I'm lamenting. And lamentation is considered tamasic. Krishna tells Arjuna, the wise don't lament for the living or the dead, and Prahlad's saying, I'm lamenting. And in the first half of the verse, he's saying, I'm enjoying. I'm enjoying and I'm lamenting. It's like, okay, well, are you enjoying or are you lamenting? Like, because it's like they don't mix. It's one or the other. And he's saying, I am enjoying hearing and chanting about Krishna, but I'm lamenting that other people are not hearing and chanting. So that is a perfect example of compassion. It's like I'm fine. I chanted rounds. We had nice kirtan. Got nice prasadam, everything is good, let the world go to hell, who cares, I'm happy. I got a bed, I got a couple cups of dal and a couple of chapatis, got some seva, I'm good, who cares? It's not how a devotee thinks. A devotee thinks, we must do whatever we have to do to make people Krishna conscious, and we're always thinking how to do that and making sacrifices. So that's a devotee's misery, that people are not Krishna conscious. Sri Sri Gaur Nitai ki jai. That's a devotee's misery. That's a devotee's unhappiness. And then, if you have that misery, that it becomes that's where you get all your energy to spread Krishna consciousness. Now, you might say, what if you don't have that misery? And all I could say is, I'm sorry to hear that. What if you don't feel that way? I'm sorry to hear you don't feel that way, because that's what it means to be a Vaishnava. It's like saying, what if I chant offensively? I'm sorry to hear that, but that's not the way we're supposed to chant. So I don't feel this way. I'm sorry to hear it. Now Prabhupada said, well, if you don't feel this way, at least go out and perform the actions of compassion, because it'll awaken. But the real empowerment behind those actions is the feeling. I want people to come to Krishna consciousness. And as that desire increases, it communicates in your words. Even though your words are the same, they're experienced differently because your compassion is felt by that person. The person feels it. They'll feel subconsciously, this is a nice person. He seems like very sincere in what he's doing, and it seems like he really wants to offer me something. They'll feel that. Whatever you feel, people close to you feel also. If you feel nothing, they'll feel nothing. If you feel fear, they'll be afraid, and they go, no thank you. Right? It's interesting, isn't it? So really, that's the best technique that I could think of. And Prabhupada confirmed that. And Prabhupada said that if you meet someone and someone feels that you are like a friend, he said, then naturally they'll want to take a book, because they'll feel that. This caring like that. So that's really the heart. That's really the heart of spreading Krishna consciousness. And it's, last night we were talking about Prabhupada and Prabhupada's effect on us. And Prabhupada had that effect on us. That maybe we weren't compassionate people, but he was. And so he affected us. Because, think about it. You have to start a movement from scratch. There's no temples, there's no devotees. Unless the first adopters have some sufficient degree of compassion, it wouldn't have happened. Because it's not easy to spread Krishna consciousness, right? Just would have sizzled out. But because Prabhupada's heart was so full of compassion, it affected the devotees. As you study the history, you see devotees were opening temples all the time, going off from the comforts of the temple they were in and all the devotees, and going off to some new city, 20, 21 years old, 6 months to a year in the movement, and going to open a temple. Like, where's that coming from? That was the compassion that Prabhupada had that infested them like a disease in their own heart. And so that's the only way it could have spread, right? Otherwise it was too hard. Like, we'd go out all day and chant on the street and sell like 8 magazines and do that every day. That's not easy. Just basically getting ignored all day. We'd go out on Harinam and people would walk by and ignore us. And occasionally we'd sell a magazine. So how could we go out the next day and the next day and the next day? We were infected by Prabhupada's desire. So that's the real thing. Another thing that Prabhupada said, which I think is important to mention, and this can help us a lot in our work of spreading Krishna consciousness. As you probably heard, Prabhupada used to say, strain your brain to spread Krishna consciousness. This is basically like keep thinking of ways to spread. And I think that's totally relevant today because times have changed, so adaptation is necessary. But Prabhupada once wrote, when some devotees did some amazing preaching that was never done before, he said, I'm very happy, and this is the sign that you're making advancement, that you saw an opportunity, you saw an opening. No one did what you did before, and you saw an opening for spreading Krishna consciousness. You took advantage and you did it. And Prabhupada said, this is a sign of an advanced devotee. So you can see that would naturally follow compassion, because if you're compassionate, you want to show that compassion to people. But if you're trying to show it and they're not accepting it, then naturally you think, okay, well, what are we going to do now? We have to try to get the medicine to them in a different way, because they're not taking it in this way. We have to try this way or this way or this way. So the devotee's compassion naturally pushes them to think how we can spread Krishna consciousness. As Prabhupada said, strain your brain. What else can we do? Can we do it better? Can we do more? Can we do it differently? How are people thinking today? Are we in sync? Are we communicating with them? Are they resonating with our message? Are they coming once and never coming back? Or what's going on? So naturally we'll think like that. Because We soche, we lament when people don't become Krishna conscious. Even though we're happy chanting and dancing, we lament that they are not becoming Krishna conscious. So we're always thinking, how can I do it better? You're distributing books. You're always thinking, this person didn't take a book. What could I have done better, right? Or he took one book. Maybe I could have given him 2 or 5 or 10. So that's natural, but that's the force behind the Sankirtan movement. The force is compassion. Okay. We promised you we would sit here till 7:30. So, if there are any questions or discussions, yes?
About chanting.
Yes.
Cruel. If some thinking coming about our duty during the day, and we are very cruel to this thinking, and I have to do in my mobile phone and put for next after I will think about that. But what about something what we wrote day before or before sleeping, something from Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's coming in our mind. For example, Vasuki is there, demigods, and demons, and Vishnu on the top, and this big ocean, which should be also cruel to this. Okay, go away and to do. Later I think I'm a little bit more gentle. Or how we should.
Yeah. I can tell you what Prabhupada said, and I can also tell you kind of my understanding. Similar questions were asked to him. Specifically, should I think of Leela when I chant? And it's an interesting question because if Krishna is his name, and he is, then so that wherever Krishna is, there's Leela, because he's always doing something. So there can't be Krishna and not Leela. Just like there can't be me and not Leela unless I just am a frozen statue, then there's no Leela. But as long as I'm doing something, there's Leela. So obviously Krishna's doing something, so there's Leela. So it's kind of an interesting question, the question that was asked to Prabhupada, should we think of the Leela? And so, he didn't answer this way, but it's like, well, if you're thinking of Krishna, you're thinking of the Leela. That's... Can you think of Krishna and not think of the Leela? Can I think of you and not think of what you do? That's like when you meet somebody, first thing they ask is, what do you do? Isn't it? It's like that's just your identity. So Prabhupada said, the goal of chanting is to be absorbed in the Leela. Because if you're absorbed in Krishna, you're absorbed in the Leela. But then he said, but you shouldn't force yourself to think of the Leela. He said, if you have to force yourself, then just hear. Just chant and hear. So we've heard that Prabhupada said, there's no question of the mind, just hear. Because someone said, I can't control my mind. He said, well, just hear. But there's another time he said, think of the Leela. If you can't, then just hear. So now, like you said, we read Bhagavatam, and then the next morning, naturally, we think of the Leela. So technically speaking, according to Prabhupada, that is fine, because you're not trying to think of the Leela, get my head on the Leela. Which Leela? Find that Leela, and it's all artificial. So Prabhupada didn't like Prabhupada did not like artificial chanting. He liked it natural. There was someone who put a picture of Krishna had a harmonica holder, put a picture of Krishna on it. Said, I don't want to forget Krishna. So Prabhupada said, that's not right. That's not the way it works. So I think forcing ourselves to think of the Leela was like the person who had the picture of Krishna on a harmonica holder, and he's going around all day looking at the picture. No, you should, if you're advanced, obviously you're thinking of Krishna and seeing him everywhere. You don't need to do that. So it's natural to think of the Leela when you chant. And if you're fortunate enough to think of the Leela before you're advanced enough for it to be natural, that's fantastic. But, so that was Prabhupada's answer. And I think that answer is clear. If it comes in your mind, yeah, well, you're fortunate. Read Bhagavatam, read Krishna book every night, and you'll be in the Leela in the morning. But I would say, as a cautionary note, we could have the potency to be totally spaced out on our rounds and still be thinking of the Leela. It's possible. So when Prabhupada's saying it's going to be natural, it's because you're chanting well and you're in the right mood. But if it's just, okay, I read something and now I'm just Hare Krishna, and I completely disconnected from chanting and just thinking about what I read last night, that also wouldn't be good, because it's not the proper mood. So
Preparing the class.
Say that again.
Preparing the class.
In your head.
During
Oh, prepare. Yeah. The answer to all those questions is what helps your japa? What is empowering you to be in that mood of begging the holy name for pure bhakti and connecting to Krishna? Now, maybe you have to give class and it's like you have no time to prepare and you're just chanting. And it's natural you're going to think. But on a scale of 1 to 10, I wouldn't put that chanting at 10. I'd put it more at like 4. It's not 1. You're still thinking of Krishna, you're thinking of service, you're thinking of philosophy. But if you listen to Prabhupada chanting, you can feel, you can hear in his chanting, he's not preparing for class. He's not thinking about what he's going to write in the letter later. It's Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram. You can just feel what's in that. There's Krishna and there's nothing else. And if you haven't really listened to that meditatively, just feeling it, do it, and you'll understand what I'm saying. There's nothing else in his chanting. There's only Krishna. So that's the goal. So someone might say, well, I could think of so many things, better I think of my service. But the proper response is think of your service when it's time to think of it. And now is not time for that. Now is the time to pray that you can do that service purely. Because we need to pray for that, don't we? Because we have a long way to go. There's a lot of things to clean out, and that's where we want to be in the morning when we're connecting. So that's the best way. Be connected on. So as close as you can get to that level, that's best. Everything else is less. And the more you're occupied in the mind, the less you're going to be in your heart. So Prabhupada says, like a child crying for his mother. So, just compare what's going on in your japa to a child crying for his mother, and then you can kind of see if, what I'm thinking and feeling is correct. Because we know the intensity of a child crying. And I can say for sure that once you go into your mind, the intensity of your chanting and the focus, it drops dramatically, because I can just see it when people are chanting. Right? You're chanting really intensely, very focused. Hour later, you're Hare Krishna. It's obvious to you. It's obvious to anyone who sees you. Something shifted. And you're probably just thinking about whatever. I mean, if you look at someone, you can just tell when they're thinking, right? They're looking up like this, they're like that, scratching their head. See it on the face. So when you come to that level, when you're chanting, it's like the energy just shifted from very focused and prayerful to just splayed out, and energy just went down. And so your experience of the holy name also went down with it, isn't it? So you figured out a good class, but what was your experience of the holy name? Okay, thank you, holy name, for helping me, get some, okay, that's all right. But not the best. There's a time for thinking of class. There's a time for thinking of service. And japa is not ideally the time for that. Japa is a time for thinking of your relationship with Krishna. And if you do that, you'll see the result. And what will be the result? The result will be that you will find Krishna consciousness blissful and easy, and you'll feel yourself quite fit in bhakti. But if we minimize that, that's like the main nutrient in our spiritual life. So if we minimize that, we're getting other nutrients from other things, but we're missing the main one. So there's going to be some problems there that only pure chanting is going to eliminate. So it's important to know that. Yes?
Maybe I feel impatient.
Yeah. You want to get bhava faster? Impatience is okay as long as you're patient. Just transfer your impatience to desire. When will that day come? But you have to pay a price for millions of lifetimes of not serving Krishna. That's going to take a while. So your time frame just has to switch. But your desire doesn't have to lessen. Your just time frame has to adjust to the reality of how dirty the heart is. But the desire for purity should never be lessened, but patience will come when you realize it's going to be slower than I thought. But if you chant well, it's going to move. It's going to move. Maybe not as fast as you'd like, but it'll move. But, you broke your ankle. It's going to take time to heal. You can't just go running tomorrow. So we messed up for a few billion lifetimes. It'll take time, but it'll get better. When, will my voice choke? That's okay. Let's pray for that day. I want it. When, Krishna, will I cry? I want to chant your name. When will I have some feeling? That's all great. But just be patient. So you balance both. Both are necessary. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe later today. Maybe the next mantra. That's going to be the one. When, Krishna, when? Keep praying. Can only get better if you do that. If you don't want to struggle in your Krishna consciousness, you're going to have to chant properly. There's no way around it. And usually those who have difficulty are the ones who are not chanting well. It's kind of a paradox that you would have difficulty and really be chanting well. I mean, it could happen. You could be highly conditioned and materially attached and overcome by your attachments. But generally, if we chant trying to avoid offenses, our spiritual life goes quite smoothly. And you'll be happy. You'll be less impatient because you'll just be happy. You'll be blissful. I mean, we want pure bhakti, but if we're still happy in our bhakti now, then we can be more patient. Yes? Simple, right? I tried to keep it simple for the main reason because it is simple. I think it's good sometimes to keep it simple when it is simple. So everybody just gets it. Yeah, I think I got it. You made like 3 points in an hour, but I guess those points were important. Yeah. And if you get those, then everything's good. Okay? Is that okay? Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bo.
His Grace Mahatma Prabhu ki
Krishna Vadaya Krishna Krishna.